Welcome to this interview with Mr. Fiocchi. He is a European Member of Parliament in the European Conservatives and Reformist Group and is a member of the Special Committee on the Environment, Public Health and Food Safety. We just have a few questions for you, Mr. Fiocchi. The first being, could you please tell us the scope of your work for the New Green Deal?
The scope of my work.
What do you do? Yes.
I've been particularly active both in ENVI and in ITRE, mostly regarding, let's say, topics that has to do with the energy sector, for example, batteries and all the different systems to stock electrical energy for renewable energies. The critical raw materials, which also have an importance regarding, again, batteries, but not only batteries. And then all the huge topic of recycling, minimum content of recycled material in the new manufactured objects, which is a huge topic, because you go again from batteries, but to a whole bunch of different sectors here. And then everything. I mean, and in ENVI, we see a lot of things regarding health, regarding COVID, of course, and all that matters, which of course has a big influence also on new construction type of project,
yes.
Of course.
Right. What are your suggestions for the European Parliament on how they could improve the Green New Deal and strategies? What strategies could they use to reach the goals?
This weekend was quite interesting because we witnessed a break between Franz Timmermans, the executive vice president, with all the power for the New Green Deal, and Pascal Canfin, who is the chairman of the ENVI Commission in the Parliament. There are some items which are quite controversial, especially the proposal by Franz Timmermans to tax the use of hydrocarbons for heating and electricity for the housing. So there was quite a big discussion because Pascal Canfin, and I do agree with him, was not in agreement that we should tax, especially the poor part of the. So Franz Timmermans proposed to make a 70 billion euro fund, but it was quite, I don't know, difficult because first you tax the people.
Yeah.
And then you say, I'm going to make a fund to give them back the money. Too bad that the fund is made with contribution by the member states, which they're going to get by taxing the people. So
it's just a cycle, right?
So the fear, and I do agree in certain countries that an approach like this, so Green Deal, no matter what is the social cost or the economic cost, could cause a lot of protest. Of course, Pascal Canfin mentioned right away the yellow jackets in France and so on. But it is a very delicate thing. I mean, it could really break the European Union.
Yeah.
Some countries are not so happy about this approach by Franz Timmermans.
Okay.
So we have a goal which is desirable, and everybody believes that we need to do something about the environment, but how we get there is still very, very controversial.
Right. Right. How does sustainable construction and the future of sustainable construction fit in within this new Green Deal and within what you do with batteries, for example?
But there is a lot of work to do in sustainable construction, and I will touch some points. of course, we realize that we have to live with COVID, no matter what. So I would suggest, and I think there are already companies that are already doing this, to re-engineer completely all the heating system, especially the one with forced air, um, adding specific filters and adding specific re-engineering so that there is a sufficient clean ventilation. And I think especially to the schools and to all the buildings where there's a high number of people. So there will be a lot of research and development in this area. This is linked to COVID. I do suspect, even though it hasn't started yet, that like in many other sectors, there will be a requirement on minimum recycled content in the construction material.
Okay.
But this is something that we would probably see sometimes in October in the MEP Commission.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it is controversial because then you have again a break between the strong environmentalists and the more modern ones regarding an increase in the use of wood in construction, which on one side is good because you can recycle. On the other side, they think that they're going to destroy the forest, so they're fighting on this topic. Yeah. There is a lot of research and development done by private companies, but I think that the EU will give funds for this type of research, especially in the domotics or the automatic management of the energy inside buildings, especially large buildings. With systems that, for example, check if there are persons in the room and automatically decrease either the heating or the air conditioning, or they turn off automatically the lights so that there's no waste for nothing. And it's been proven that you can save up to 30% of your energy needs by doing this. So there will be a lot of change in the way we build and we manage the constructions. Then there is one more topic which has not been touched, but I'm pushing a lot on this topic, especially inside the Baker Committee, so the strategy for beating cancer in Europe, which is related to radon, which is a radioactive gas, which naturally comes from the ground in several areas, regions of Europe, in Italy, especially around Rome and north of my town of Lecco, but also in Spain, in the Czech Republic, in Finland, and so on. So here you have the problem that a lot of member states are giving funds for increasing the energy efficiency of the building, and typically by sealing or putting isolation on the outside of the house. Unlikely in the place where you have radon, this will make it even worse because the house will be much more efficient in capturing the radon inside, and therefore increasing the number of lung cancer patients. Mm-hmm. So you also have to do formation to the construction companies regarding this problem, because if you have a problem like that, you have to take action to fix the problem,
right,
to avoid, to actually help the concentration of radon.
Yeah.
Sometimes a lot of things, you start in one direction thinking, oh, this is good, all the houses are going to be much more efficient, so we use less electricity, we use less gas, and so on and so on and so on. But then you cause a problem which is quite big on the health issue.
Yeah.
So this is another big topic.
Yeah, that's very important. One solution could cause another problem, so you really have to keep so many factors into play. So how would you say member states could best adopt sustainable construction policies in order to reach the goals set by the new Green Deal? Because I know some member states have better abilities than others. to do it.
Yes, and the situation is very, very different depending not only in member state, but also depending on region inside the member states. There are some areas, especially in the Eastern Europe and some places of the Mediterranean states, where the heating system is extremely old and inefficient, very often even using how do you call it? Not diesel, but naphtha. You know, I don't know the name in English, but there are some areas where they're much more advanced in terms of the network to use methane gas or other type of with heating system which are much more efficient. There are some areas where they're starting strong, for example, on heat pumps and other systems like that. But of course, all these systems can give you a huge saving in energy. Depends where you are, because obviously in the south of Italy, you don't have the problem of heating, basically. In the north, yes. So there are a lot of different things they can do, but from statistics that we see, for example, for the area of Milano, even during COVID, there were only 10% of the usual cars on the road, but the poisoning on the air was almost the same, because so they realized that actually the heating of the private homes is quite big in throwing CO2, sulfur components and so on into the air. So I'm mentioning this, it's not really specific of construction, but definitely a big approach to this problem will give us very fast results in terms of energy saving on one side and less CO2 released in the environment.
Yes.
So this is one big. Now, when you're linked to that, then the next problem, which in the mind of the new Green Deal, you eventually will have to take out also methane gas, right, which right now we came to a agreement that gas will be a transition power system, let's call it like that, waiting to be much stronger on the renewable energy. No?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That will be a problem, because when you go away from gas, you have these huge distribution networks. You have millions of heating systems in all the different houses that need to be recycled, changed. Also, the entire heating system or air conditioning system needs to be changed inside the houses. Mm-hmm. And in places where you have extremely old houses, it's a problem. But for sure, this can give us large and very fast results in terms of both reducing the CO2 emission and reducing the energy needs.
Right. Okay. So what would you say are the greatest barriers to overcome when it comes to sustainable construction? And how would you recommend these barriers to be overcome?
Obviously, we need to rethink how we build houses. And a lot of things that we were doing in the past, we cannot do anymore. There will be some changes from a whole bunch of different type of customs that we had in the past. Obviously, the type of materials are extremely important, because also we have to remember that the cement industry is one of the largest emitter of CO2, yep, and user of energy also. Mm-hmm. So obviously, the idea would be to go to systems which are less energy intensive in terms of construction material. And again, like I was mentioning before, with higher recycled content inside the mix.
Right.
Because then you also have the problem of where you put the the waste material coming out of the destruction of the house or the soil excavation, so on and so on and so on. So this will be probably the biggest culture change. Houses need to be also redesigned in terms of dimension, heights, to minimize the need of material and maximize the energy efficiency on the other. And again, like I was mentioning on COVID, also having systems that would protect the people inside the buildings,
right.
By filtering and allowing sufficient air changing inside the different rooms. So these are the major, then I was saying domotics will play an important role. Obviously, also all the electrical system inside the house will need to be changed, because basically it will be like having a computer with actuators and sensors managing the entire system. So, which means also the electrician needs to change in terms of formation, in terms of how they do things, and so on. There will be quite a revolution, in my opinion, regarding new constructions in the future.
Right. So the logistics will have to, have to come into play. Well, thank you so much.
Of course, you know, I do believe that most of the private companies are already moving in this direction.
Right.
The big obstacle, in my opinion, is to see if there will be enough money to do a transition, because obviously, if the government forces you to, for example, change your heating system or change your electrical system, or the people will ask for funds from the government, and you're talking millions and millions of households.
Yes.
Do we have enough money to cover this transition? It's a question mark.
That's probably one of the most greatest barriers, the funding. Wow. Okay. Well, thank you. That's all the questions we have for you today. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I mean, there are thousands of little topics regarding this, but you know, I touched on some of the big ones.
Right. And I'm sure we can cover more of them at the roundtable in September as well. We really look forward to having you there at the Sustainable Construction Roundtable on this 22nd of September. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Okay.